All right, we're here again to interview another one of our family members. This is Carl Solomon. You got a middle name you're not ashamed of?
I don't have a middle name, but I'm a Carl Solomon Sr. I have a junior.
There we go. All right, so where we want you to start is, I already gave you a name, but you can do it again. Your name, no birth dates, because we don't want to risk anything about identity theft. So your name, where you were born, and your parents. Let's start there.
Okay, my name is Carl Solomon, and I was born in Flint, Michigan, and my parents were or are Juanita Solomon, Juanita Willis Solomon, and George Anthony Solomon. And my,
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Nope, keep going. Give me some of your family.
Sure, and my dad, he was from Macon, Georgia, and he was born in 1925. And my mom was from Waynesboro, Mississippi, born in 1931. And I had one brother, George Anthony Solomon, and he was a junior, and he was born in Flint, Michigan as well. And he was 3 years older than I am. And he passed away in December 30th, 2008.
Okay. Now, do you have any children?
I have 3 children. The oldest is Larry. Larry is 40 years old, and he lives in Vallejo, California.
His birthday?
I have a middle son named Carl Solomon Jr., and he's 35. He lives in the Sacramento area in a city called Citrus Heights. And then my youngest son, Daniel Thomas Solomon, he's 26, and he lives in beautiful San Diego, but he has his own place.
And their birth dates?
Birthdays, let's see. Daniel was born in 1994, and
the month and
the day.
Okay, he was born August 21st, 1994, and
no year.
Okay, Carl Jr. was born in October 21st. And Larry was born September 30th.
Okay.
Nice.
So now, you grew up in Flint. Did you ever go to Waynesboro to visit your family, other family members?
Well, I actually didn't grow up in Flint. My mom and dad, they met in Chicago when my dad got out of the Navy back in, I think, 1952. And they got married in Chicago. And I think Inez was in Chicago too. And she met her Uncle Dan, and they got married as well. And so my mom and dad were, like all African Americans, when they moved from the South to the North, they're looking for employment. And so my dad ended up in Flint, Michigan, but he moved away after about 2 or 3 years. He worked for Buick Motor Company, and he was laid off. He was an assembly line worker. So when we moved from Flint, Michigan, I was 3 months old. But in the first few years of my life, there was times where my parents, when they were traveling, would send my brother and I down to Waynesboro to stay with our grandmother, known as Big Mama, and with Margie. So I do have some pictures of me as a little toddler, running around in the yard there in Waynesboro. But from Flint, Michigan, my parents moved to, I think, Cleveland, Ohio, and then they lived in Philadelphia for a little while. My grandmother on my dad's side lived in Philadelphia, as well as some other relatives. And then we ended up in Atlantic City back in the 60s for a short period of time. And then employment took my mom and dad to New Haven, Connecticut. And we landed in Connecticut when I was about 4 years old. And we stayed in Connecticut until probably I turned about 16. And parents went through a divorce. Dad headed south down to Macon, Georgia. And my mom, she decided to head to Chicago. She had a lot of health problems, and she wanted to be around, family. So we moved to Chicago for about a month, and that was probably in 1973. And then we ended up in Chicago Heights, where I finished high school. And then I went to University of Illinois for a little while, and then I went to a community college after dropping out of the university. I went to Prairie State Community College in Homewood, Flossmoor, And then after getting my 2-year degree, I went up to Northern Illinois University up in DeKalb, Illinois. And so we lived in Chicago Heights for probably about 2 or 3 years. And then my mom and I, we moved up to DeKalb, Illinois for me to attend 4-year college.
Okay. Okay. So who do you remember? How far back can you go as far as the family lineage?
Far back as I can go on my mother's side is our grandmother, which we call Big Mama. I recall, being down there for family reunions, for funerals, and times of sickness. And I probably was under 10 years old, when she passed away. But I recall my mom and I taking a train from Connecticut down to Mississippi, and we went into Hattiesburg, and one of our uncles, picked us up to come and, visit our grandmother. But that's
Okay.
about as far as I can go. Yeah.
Okay, so you can go far back as Big Mama. That would be Elena Woolard, right, Dub?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then Nanny, you mentioned Nanny. That's Margie Woolard.
Yeah, Nanny Brown, right? One
You
thing
know, what?
hi Donna.
Hey,
Oh,
everybody.
Donna's there. Okay.
One thing I'll never forget about Nanny Brown is I was at a family reunion we had down in Waynesboro, and I was inside this building we had on the grounds that we had rented, for the cookout, and all of the kids were in there, and Nanny Brown was in there cooking, and we had a few other cousins in there cooking, and the kids were just running around like crazy. And I'll never forget, Nanny Brown saying, "Sit down and be quiet," or something. And I mean, it had to be about 20 kids, and all of them respected her. They stopped what they were doing. They sat down. They were quiet. I said, "Wow, this is amazing." But that's
Nanny
one thing
didn't play.
About her.
Yeah, we had respect for Nanny Brown, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
She get that switch or that belt.
Yes.
Do you have any stories about Big Mama or any of your uncles?
Or dad. You remember dad?
Dan, let's see. You mean Uncle Dan?
No,
No,
not
Fred
dad.
Woolard.
Dad.
Oh, dad, my dad?
No. Big Mama's husband, your grandfather.
No,
Maternal.
I didn't get a chance to really know him. I was probably a toddler, the times I spent down there before he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, about the only thing I've seen is a picture of him and Big Mama together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories of any of your uncles or other aunts?
Let's see. I know my mom and Ined and Evie were very close. And I think they weren't too far apart in age, but I think they were the best of friends. And I kind of seen that when me, being a teenager, moved to Chicago area and the relationship that they had with each other during our time there, but they were very close. Yeah.
Okay. Growing up, how much time, who in the family did you get the opportunity to get to know? I was a young one, so I know you were older than I. But who in the family, as growing up, who in the family did you associate with?
Well, not a whole lot because, we lived in Connecticut many years and until we came back to Chicago. But I think the ones that I kind of talked to more frequently and got to know was we had Donna, of course, and we had Diane, Elaine, and Cynthia. And I'll say those are probably the four that I, spent more of the time with or communicated with or, did things with. And I know with, Diane, we used to go out different places. I even went to a concert many years ago when I was a teenager with Elaine. So we went to a concert together. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But as I got older, one of my hangout buddies was our cousin Fred. Times when I was in Chicago.
We have a couple of Freds now. Fred Woolard,
Fred Willard.
Marvin.
Oh, I
there we
see.
go.
Okay. Yeah, Fred Willard. Yeah. But I used to hang out with Fred Marvin and what's that, Laurel, Mississippi? Yeah, he
would go to Laurel sometime.
That nightclub, where you go on one, party, you buy your cups and your ice and your liquor, and then you go in the club. You'll never forget that.
They call that a setup. You buy your setup.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now, in growing up, you told us about going to college. You told us about where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at let's see, what was it called? It was called Bloom Township in Chicago Heights, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I had went to Hill House High School in New Haven, Connecticut, up until the 11th grade. So of course, moving to Chicago, it was nice to be around family, but it was kind of bittersweet because I didn't graduate or go to the prom at the high school I had went to for 3 years prior, where all your
Mm-hmm.
friends are. So that was kind of hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you start working and where? When was your first job?
Well, my first unofficial job was a paper boy. Yeah, my brother George, he had a paper out. He had about 40 customers in New Haven. And as he moved on to other things like music and different things, and I took the paper out over from him. And with it, I did that from about maybe 12 until probably about 15. And after that, I became a stock boy at a department store. I worked as a busboy. I worked as a cook. Worked security. And then as I, went on to college, let's see, what did I do? When I was in Illinois, I worked at Madison, Illinois at the mall out there. I was a cook at J.C. Penney. At that time, they had restaurants full service in J.C. Penney, of all things. And during that time, right after high school, I was also a paid on-call firefighter. And I did that in Chicago Heights for 2 years, a way of giving back. And the neat thing about that, even though I was 18, 19 before, going on to Northern Illinois University, with a fireman's badge, you can go on the other side of the ropes at a fireworks show. You'd be in parades. If I want to go and get a 6-pack of beer, even though the age was 21, just walking in the uniform and no questions asked. Movie theaters, you take a date on a movie, to a movie. It's always free, and they give you free concessions. They take care of their first responders. But yeah, I worked at J.C. Penney, and then I did the fireman thing for a while, and then I went up to Northern Illinois, for 4-year college. And while up there, I worked as a display manager at a department store for a while. And if you want me to continue after college, my first job back in 1979, I worked in DeKalb, Illinois. I was a supervisor at a county hospital on the evening shift, and I had about 20 employees reporting to me. And my staff, they cleaned the hospital. And from that, I became a manager, stayed there for about 2 years, and then I moved to Chicago area again, where I worked at St. Francis Hospital up in Evanston as a manager for a while. And then I went to East Chicago, Indiana at St. Catherine's Hospital. And from there, moved down to Houston, Texas in, I think, 83. And I was a, manager there at a hospital. And ended up from there in St. Louis, somewhere about a year later. And while in St. Louis, I met Roberta, who was my ex-wife, and we dated for about a year, and then we got married, and we had a son about a year after that. And St. Louis, I think I was there from like 83 until about 1987. And from there, I had a job opportunity in California, in Northern Cal. Roberta and I had traveled on vacation out to California and fell in love with the environment, the palm trees, the weather, and the beaches and the mountains. And so I put in for a job transfer at the contract company I was working with. And within about 3 months, I was offered a position up in Vallejo, California, at a hospital called Sutter. And Sutter, I stayed there for about 2 years at 2 hospitals. I was responsible for environmental services and linen distribution. And after that, a opportunity knocked on the door with a healthcare organization called Kaiser Permanente. And they're primarily on the West Coast. They have some presence in the Midwest, up in, I think, Colorado and also in Ohio. and some presence on the East Coast around DC, but primarily they're on the on the West Coast. And so with Kaiser, I worked there from '88 until 2000. Let's see, 2008, 20 years. And yeah, and I was a director at San Francisco for 3 years, managing environmental services. And then I, went back and got my master's degree at Golden Gate University in San Francisco. And from that, I got promoted to a division director, where I had 5 departments. I had nutritional services, environmental services, telecommunication, volunteer services, and patient transport. And with that, I had about 800 employees. From that, we did a reorg, and my job went away. And I'm the type, I'm not going to, just sit around and wait, for the hammer to fall. I'm going to start looking. And it's been a blessing in my career. I've had jobs that have come and gone, but I've never been unemployed. And I've never, taken a job making less. It's always been the same or even more. But from San Francisco, I became a consultant in a city called Vallejo, and that was for facilities and for building construction and environmental services. And I did that for about a year. And then a new opportunity came up in Oakland at the what they call the program offices. That's the headquarters for Kaiser. And I became a national consultant initially, and then I had 3 more consultants on, under me. And we took care of Kaiser from Hawaii to Portland to the DC area down to Georgia. So during 7 years, I had a chance to, travel to all those locations and to provide consulting support, to our medical centers and clinics. So it's been a real blessing. I used to love the frequent flyer miles. And, so after 20 years with Kaiser, the consulting jobs went away, and then I was in the Central Valley in what's they call Stockton and Modesto and Manteca. And that's about maybe 60 miles east of San Francisco. And I became a division director again, where I had about 4 departments. And I was there for about 3-4 years, and I never planned on leaving. I was going to just retire. And then an opportunity came up from the University of California in San Francisco for a director's job. And initially, I prayed on it, talked to family, and God said no. So I said, I better just stay put. About 3 months later, the recruiter, headhunter, he came back to me and he said, they really want to hire you at San Francisco, and they're willing to pay extra money. And so, again, I talked to the family, I prayed, to the man above, and looked at, what they were offering. And I said, well, I'm going to go for it. And so to this point now, I've been at the UC system for 13 years. And I plan on working until August 26, 2023, and I am retiring.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Well, I'm retiring from work. Yeah, I'm going to keep busy because I, volunteer at my church. I'm with the hospitality team, which is the ushers and the greeters, and I've been doing that for 4 years, and I find that very enriching, being able to greet people when they come in the door. You never know what they've been going through. You never know what's on their mind, and if you can be, a pleasant handshake, a smile, a hug, a word of, encouragement for them, then that gives me fulfillment. So I'm going to continue doing that. Even, I do it now. I'm going to continue beyond retirement. One thing I'm also looking at doing, I was a consultant for 7 years with Kaiser. I can do that, myself from home. So that's another opportunity to do consulting with nursing homes and hospitals in my field of expertise. And another
That's
thing,
more work.
yeah, exactly. But you do it at your own schedule. But another thing I've never done is, go on a mission trip. And the church I go to, they have many opportunities, prior to COVID, and they're going to have it soon coming up to go to different countries and to serve, to give back to others. And as you know, there's people within this country that have needs. So you don't have to go to Mexico or, Africa or Haiti if you want, unless you want to. But I think it would be rewarding to be able to give back, to others, because we've been so blessed, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Our family has been blessed.
Yes, that's true.
And
That's
Donna
true.
said, amen, right, Donna?
Yes, yes, yes. Thumbs up.
Yeah, we're healthy. We got healthy children, successful children, right?
Yes,
Yeah. And we all fear God.
yes.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
What
So
would you go ahead,
go
Percy?
ahead, Dub. Go ahead, Dub.
Okay, I was going to ask you, Carl, what would you tell your younger self, your 21-year-old self, if you could send a message from, now back in time to that person?
Well, some things I would probably tell myself at that time is that if a thought comes to mind, if you think about doing something, do it. Now, of course, you got to prepare. You may have to have some education. You may have to have some experience, but anything that's achievable. And there's been many times where I myself, and I'm sure all of us have thought, well, maybe I should have went this direction or that direction, but we had doubt in ourselves, and doubt comes from the enemy. It doesn't come from God. So the main thing I would tell myself is that, if you dream of it, go for it. But again, on the flip side, nothing in our lives happen by chance. That our steps are, counted by God, and that He knows which direction we're going to be going. He knows where we're going to end up. He knows what we need, so He's going to provide. And we may think, well, instead of being, a manager or director, maybe I should have been an airline pilot or a doctor. No, we're doing what He has in our plan. Because sometimes, we could take on more and fail, terribly if we try to shoot, too big and we're not prepared for it. But just, to pray to Him, keep Him first, and trust Him. One thing I've done over my life, and I tell my kids that, is anytime I have a major event, it could be, a major decision at work. It could be going through a, financial crisis. It could be kids acting up, which we've all had. It could be going for a job interview. It could be making a presentation or a difficult decision. Is to, number one, pray, okay, and ask Him to give you strength and wisdom, and ask Him to let the folks that you're presenting to not to see you but to see Him in terms of what they're visualizing, what they're hearing, and also to be able to visualize what you want to see as an outcome. So if like say you want a job interview and you want the job, you want a certain package for benefits and pay, you want the nice office on the corner with a window, you want a nice retirement plan, then you got to be able to visualize it and see it. If you can visualize it, you can have it. And as you know in the Bible, it says, without vision, the people perish. But I've never had, one time where I didn't really put my heart into doing that and haven't been successful. So that's the message I'll put out there is, pursue your goals, prepare, listen to your parents, because your parents aren't trying to tell you what to do. They're trying to help you from making the same mistakes that we've made. And I tell my kids it all the time. I said, well, I said, you're going to find out either one way or another. One way you're going to find out is by listening to advice of people that love you and care for you and trying to help you. The other way you're going to find out is by feeling pain. But you have to decide, which way do you want to find out? But you got to find out either way.
That's
And
true.
as we know, a lot of time our kids, they don't listen. They go out, they make the mistakes. They don't say nothing to us, but they know, they remember what we told them. And they probably, because of lack of maturity or pride, ain't gonna come back and say, Mom, Dad, you were right. I should have listened. But they know, and that's what matters, that they do know. Yeah.
But they show you. They show you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you look at them, you're looking at a mirror image of yourself. And I'm sure that there's been times where your kids, you see something they do and you say, well, why are they doing that? And you look at yourself when you were that age, you probably did the same thing. But our parents had patience with us. Yeah.
Yeah, they say advice is free. Experience, you have to pay for.
That's a good point. Well, another message I put out there, for my kids, because we live in a age of racial disparity and discrimination and explicit bias. We've all experienced that in different ways, in employment, in housing, in education, you know, with our neighbors sometimes. But I've always told my kids, you know, if someone is treating you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, you got to say something. And you could be in a store and you're ignored, like you're invisible, you're disrespected. They don't say thank you. They don't make eye contact. You got to confront it. Because if you don't, then what you're doing, you're sending a message that it's okay to treat me that way. And it's okay to treat the next person that comes along that looks like me the same way. But if you in a nice, professional, articulate, calm way can confront that with that person, and I find myself doing it weekly, then it's a gift. You're helping that person. And a lot of time the managers that manage those people that are acting out like that, they're not around. They're not there to see what's going on. You know, they may be in the back office. But you're not helping them, you're not helping yourself and your own people if you keep your mouth shut. It looks like
And that was one of the,
Percy would agree, right, Percy?
I agree. That was one of the questions I had for you was during your time growing up, going to school, and the different jobs and positions you've held in different areas, different states, how much racial discrimination did you experience or were asked to inflict on others?
Well, I was never really asked to inflict it on others. You know, when you're a child growing up in school, you have kids that, tease each other, they call each other names, they taunt people that don't look like them, but you're a part of it yourself. You know, you're doing it because you think that's what people do until you grow in maturity and you start doing that, type stuff. But I did experience racism. One example I can give you. When I went to University of Illinois in Chicago, Chicago Circle, I decided to drop out because I wasn't prepared. I never planned on going to college. My plan when I was in high school was to go into the Air Force and to learn how to fly planes or join the CIA. And I decided, when I got out of high school, I said, well, I don't want to do none of that. But I wasn't prepared for college. So I went to U of I for like 1 quarter, and I decided to drop out because I wasn't, cutting the grade. Then I went and I worked at a couple of companies. One was in Chicago Heights called Kemble Glass. They make glass bottles. And that job there, it was working on the night shift. And what I found is that, some of the white workers would not have anything to do with the black workers. You had your little cliches there. Soon after that, I left, I think about 2-3 months later, and I went to a company called Certainty. They make steel beams, for buildings, and there's a lot of sand and lime. And so all of us applying at the same time, we had a high school diploma, no college, and we all had no experience. So at this factory, they had 2 types of jobs. They had laborers that worked below the building where the conveyor belts were that carry sand and lime. With sand and lime, it just constantly falls off. So it was me and 2 other African-American guys down there shoveling this wet sand up into a debris box. And on the upper floor, they had other jobs for like laborers. And what they had to do, they had to, when the crane transferred like a beam of steel over from point A to point B, they had to hook it and unhook it. And they had to just wait until the next transfer took place. I mean, very easy work. I recall me and some of the other workers asking, well, why are we up there, working up top? And we were told not to question it, but the white guys were up top, easy work, we're down in that pit with sand and lime. And I know one time we're down in that pit and you have like a hole in the floor where they lower the barrel, the debris box, to pick up the sand and lime. And we had just taken a break because you're shoveling wet sand and lime for 8 hours, besides the break. And so we had taken a break, just catch our breath. And the foreman, who was white, who happened to be the plant manager's son, he comes over and on top there, he kicks down some sand on us. And he says, get back to work, I think within a few days I quit that job. I said, this ain't for me, not at all. But I've seen, over the years, different forms of discrimination, and you just have to address it. I've seen it in a school, with my kids, where they're held to a different standard. They're maybe sent to the office more than their counterparts for doing the same thing. Uh, they are doing maybe a paper that's very subjective, and they get a D, and you got to go in there and argue with the teacher, about that. But I think we've all seen that, it happens. But the main thing is that when we see it, we have to be aware of it, and we have to confront it. Yeah, and I think with what's happened recently with George Floyd and other things in this country, there's more awareness of racial bias and discrimination and mistreatment, not only of Black people, but others, because of their differences. And I think society as a whole is trying to be a little bit more aware of it and address some of those concerns that are out there. We're not quite there, and a lot of things aren't going to go away, but at least there's some awareness and some movement in the right direction.
Do you have anything at home in your possession from your childhood, from Aunt Juanita, your dad, or from some of the older family members?
Let's see, the most things that I have with your memories is pictures. I have pictures of Big Mama, I have pictures of Aunt Margie, Aunt Evie, Aunt Inez. I got a lot of pictures everywhere. I do have some old sentimental things that my mom used to own, like silverware. If we had dinner in the main dining room on a Sunday, she'd pull out her finest, silverware and china. So I do still have some of those things there. And I still have some, what they call them, Indian head silver dollars, like in the 1800s and that. And I think I have about maybe 3 or 4 left. The thing I did as a teenager, which I didn't know any better, we were back in Connecticut. I had snuck and got 2 and went and bought something at a store. And my mom, she said, "Do you realize what you did?" But I'm thinking it's like $1, But I still have some of those items there. Yeah.
Okay.
But over the years, as my parents have passed, you end up you want to maintain memories of them, but sometimes you just have to let go of some of those old sentimental items, like furniture, things. You got to, start afresh. They would want us to move on too, and to live our lives, and not just be stuck, on maybe what happened. Yeah.
Can you,
Go ahead.
are you, Carl, are you both willing and able to scan and share some of the photos?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I will.
How often do you sit down with your children? Do you have any grandchildren yet?
Yeah, I have, let's see, 6.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
but they're all up north, so I only see them when either I go up there, which I try to go up to, Northern California about twice a year, if not more times. And sometimes they come down here. Matter of fact, my son Carl Jr., his wife, and the 3 girls and 1 boy, they came down for a trip for about 4 days, and we spent some time together.
And what are the parents' names and the child's name and the age of the child?
Let's see, Carl's wife is Deja, and he's 35, so she's got to be about 32. And the oldest girl is Adea, she's 10. There's Araya, she's 8, and there's Avia, she's 6. And then there's Benaya, who was born in December of year before last, so he's about a year and a half. And one thing about the girls is interesting. My son's a youth pastor, and he's into a lot of we call it biblical Hebrew type names. And so what he did with the girls, him and his wife, they named them all with a first name of A, middle name is Joy, last name Solomon. So you have Adea Joy Solomon, you have Araya Joy Solomon, you have Avia Joy Solomon. Trying to be creative, I guess. Yeah, but they
Okay.
kept trying until they had the boy. Yeah.
That's 4. You got 2 more. You said you got 6.
Yeah, Larry, who lives up in Vallejo, let's see, he lives in Fairfield, which is near Vallejo in Northern Cal. He's never been married, but he has two sons. I think one is about 12 and the other one is about 18. Let's see, the older boy, 18, his name is Beyonce, and the younger one is Travis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get a chance to sit with them or the family
Well,
and go over your family history anytime?
not really, not really. No. Yeah, usually when I'm with the, well, I really don't see the Larry sons because they're with their moms or on their own, and he was never really married. He was never married to her, so there's no real relationship there. And
Mhm.
I don't even know how to reach them. But with the my son Carl and his kids, I do try to spend time with them. But mostly, when we get together, it's like going to the park, going to Chuck E. Cheese, sit around watching videos. Sometimes we, talk about school and different things. One thing I did for them about 2 years ago, I have two children's books, and I gave them signed copies. And the last time I was in the Sacramento area, I sat down and read to them out of the
Okay.
children's books, which they really enjoyed. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Did you have any during your work history, any non-paid jobs?
Uh, not
Volunteer.
not really. Well, I volunteered, over the years many times. Matter of fact, since I've been in San Diego about 4 years ago, I volunteered at a homeless shelter, and as part of my church's ministry. And it was on a Saturday morning. We had to be there at 7 in the morning, and we had toiletries, we had clothing that was donated, we had light breakfast, coffee, and juice, and we had probably about 200 men and women lined up, waiting to get items in the morning. And if you're ever in San Diego, down near the baseball stadium, you have like a tent city on this one street of homeless people, and it's really a sad thing to see. But with this here, a lot of these homeless people, they have children, and the children are in the tents, but they can't come into the area where we're handing out clothing and food. But my job was, kind of hold them back and to let three at a time come through so they don't, make a bum rush. And it was
Mhm.
interesting because I had parked about maybe 4 blocks away because I was, kind of afraid my car was going to be broken into. Because in this homeless encampment, you got all these buildings and high rises, and it's kind of like a, surreal environment because you have people that sometimes are high, sometimes they have mental illness. They're walking in the middle of the street. You got all these tents, and walking over there on that Saturday morning, I felt kind of like fearful, like worried about my car, worried about me. I got there. I worked for 2 hours. Made had the opportunity to make eye contact with all of the people I met, sending them through the line, shook some hands, prayed with a few, hugged a few, And after about 3 hours of working there, when I went back to my car, I had no fear. It was more like sadness. Like, the city should do a lot more for these people out here. But that experience was very humbling for me. I've also volunteered in the past, with the healthcare organizations I've worked for. They usually have a community give back events where they may offer free care and dental service, eye service, medicals, vaccinations during a weekend fair, and I've done that numerous times in the past. And what I've tried to do with those type of events is to bring my kids. A lot of time they grumble and they complain about having to get up and go to them, but after they had the opportunity to participate in them, then they feel pretty much humbled by it. Um, I've also volunteered. Matter of fact, for COVID, I am in a clinical trial. Back in October for the AstraZeneca. I
Mhm.
signed up for that. My hospital, they're doing clinical trials for Johnson and Johnson and also the AstraZeneca clinical trial. And the reason I did that is because I work in healthcare. Number two is that the folks that have been really affected by COVID around the country is African Americans and Mexicans, primarily in Texas and California and along the border. So I said, this is my way of helping out a cause, giving back. And I've been in the trial since October, and that's going to continue for 2 years, believe it or not.
Okay.
Let's see. Beyond that, I've done, walks like a breast cancer month walk. Uh, I've actually chaired a walkathon for the United Negro College Fund. When I was with Kaiser, I was the chair for 2 years of organizing for Kaiser walkers. We had about 900 walkers and raised about $30,000, towards the cause. But I think everyone, should have a opportunity and a desire to volunteer because, giving back, it, gives you a lot of humility, and plus you feel good about helping people. And as you know, that we can't outgive God. That if we keep our hands closed tight, He can't put nothing in there. But if you're willing to freely give, then He's going to open the windows, of heaven, and He's going to provide for you, everything you need. Yeah, I've never been with want. Thank God.
I've never been wanting either. Now, if you had, let's see, you say your youngest grandchild is a year and a half?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Okay. What would you leave, I'm going to say, your great grandchildren? What type of advice would you leave for them?
Well, I would leave probably several things. One is to pursue your desires of your heart. Okay, it's not about what mom or dad wants you to do. It's about what you want to do, and only you can answer that question. You have some parents that say, well, I'm a nurse, so you should be a nurse. I'm a lawyer, you should be a lawyer now. Children may change their minds many times as they grow up in terms of which career path they go on. You have people that go to school to become a teacher, and they say, well, I didn't realize that it's all this, so let me go back to school and get another skill, and that's okay. But to let them, pursue their own, dreams, and also to realize that the things they do when they're in school is going to make a difference in their whole life going forth. You have some kids that they don't take school seriously, they don't study, they don't do their homework, they don't get the grades, they don't take the AP classes, and they don't realize how much that's gonna hurt them later when they try to, apply for the best schools. And I would say, keep God in your life. I grew up with parents that were Baptist, churchgoers. My dad was a deacon. My mom was a deaconess, and even though I didn't like it, I had to go to church. On Sunday morning, we was up, get dressed, go to church. I had to sing in the choir. I had to go to Sunday school. And I understand now, later in life, of why they did that. Because that relationship with God is so important in getting you through not only the good times, but the toughest times. Is where you can be, in a war zone and still be at peace because of that spirit that resides in you. And with our kids and grandkids and great grandkids, we're not always going to be there for them, but He will, and the Spirit will be with them. So they're never going to be lonely. They're always going to have somebody to guide them and comfort them. Yeah. And the other part I would say is always try to be kind to other people. Treat people better than you want to be treated. A lot of time you hear, treat people like you want to be treated, but you ought to treat them better. Like even your enemies, show them grace and forgiveness. Yeah. And you're forgiven not for them, but for yourself. Otherwise, you're carrying that around. You got the key, but you lock yourself behind the bars.
So anybody else got any questions? So is there anything else you want to add to this before we close?
Well, let's see. Well, I love San Diego. I've been here for 5 years, and it's been a blessing. I have some challenges going on my job up in Northern Cal, and it was time to go. And I'd actually looked at, leaving the UC system, but I, just stayed prayerful and never planned on moving here. I didn't even look for jobs down here. It was up in the Bay Area, so I wanted to be, around family. But God opened doors. I always wanted to have a two-story home again, and now I have one. I want to be near mountains. I look out my window, I see mountains, and I'm about 15, miles from the ocean. So I know this is all God's doing, and I'm a steward, of what He's provided me with, but I have to use it wisely. But it's been a blessing, and you look at my kids are up north, but it's only a flight away. It's like an hour away on a plane, and if you book ahead of time, you can save on the airfare. But it's been a blessing, and looking forward to retiring still healthy. That's the key, is to go out when you're mentally and physically able to continue having fun and spending time with kids and family.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, Doug, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. And let me see. Yeah, I had wanted to just spotlight Carl during the interview, so that make sure that we got a chance to see him. But thank you, Carl, for agreeing to come and share your life story with us. And hopefully this would be, by creating these videos, there are family members that haven't had the chance to spend a lot of time with you, that get a chance to know you, as well as we continue going forward and take more and more family members, we'll also, be able to kind of share a little bit. And it's right now, I think the first effort was to get the older family members, which is us.
Yes.
But it's we need to. I think that we'll start going into the second tier, which is our children soon. And so to the extent that you can reach out, make connections, we'd appreciate that. Let me ask though that somebody had asked. I was having a discussion, and someone was saying, like we were talking about children and cousins and second cousins, and the children of cousins. And somebody had asked about George, your brother George Jr. And they were saying like, oh, he didn't have any children. And I said, well, he did have children.
Yes, he did.
I met him, but I don't know enough to say exactly like who they are or what's going on. Could you tell us a little bit about George's children?
Yeah, he has two children, and one was born in Connecticut, New Haven. His name is Terrell Dease, D-E-A-S-E, Solomon, and he's probably in his mid-30s by now. And George, he had went into the Marines and ended up in San Diego of all places, and then he got laid off there back in the 80s, I believe. And so he moved back to Connecticut because he wanted to reconnect with his son. They never really, knew each other. And even when he moved back, it was kind of, strained relationship. And part of that was because of, lack of relation that he had with the boy's mom, But he did get a chance, move back to Connecticut and spend some time, with his son. And he has a daughter named Joydnia, who lives actually in the San Diego area. I'm not sure where. I'm not really in touch with her, but she's probably in her early 30s, and her mom is in San Diego as well. But it was interesting with Joydnia, my brother, when he passed away, he had a restraining order against him where he knew that he had a daughter, but he could never try to contact her, even though he had paid child support. And so my dad and I, because my brother, he passed away about 2 years before my dad did, we went out to Connecticut to make funeral arrangements and all that and clean out his apartment. And while, going through his paperwork and taking care of the, business, I did find the court order that had, the information about, proof of paternity. And it had her name on there. It had her, mother's name, but no address. So what I did before my dad and I flew back to California after the funeral, I spent some time at the computer at the hotel, and I did some research, and I found the Joy's mother's name, and there was probably about 5 of them, and all in San Diego. So what I did when I got back to California, I wrote a letter to all of them, and I said, well, my brother passed away. He has a daughter named Joy he's never met, and I wanted to, connect her with the family. And I said, if you are her mother, and I can't think of her name, I said, please reach out to me. About maybe 3 weeks later, I get a call from Joy, my brother's daughter, and she's tearful, happy, saying, well, I'm Joy. That was my dad. I never got a chance to meet him. And we spent about an hour on the phone, just kind of getting to know each other. And it was interesting. The few times I talked to her, it was like, happiness and anger. Happiness that, she connected with family, but anger because she felt that he never really tried to, reach out and find her, but he couldn't because of the restraining order and the lack of cooperation by her mother. And so when I was in Northern Cal, she had a chance to come out a couple of times and visit. And then the funniest thing that happened, we had a babysitter in Fairfield, Northern Cal, who had been watching Carl, Jr. when he was smaller, and also Daniel. And we had been utilizing this babysitter for probably 5 years. Come to find out, Joy's uncle was married to this lady's daughter. So we actually were related, not directly, but we were related, to this babysitter and didn't even know it. And the connecting point was Joy, because she had come up to visit me from San Diego. And we actually went over, to the babysitter's house, and they knew each other. But yeah, that's my brother. He had 2 children. He has a son and a daughter. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was about the only thing that I could think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, after COVID, we can have another family reunion. I heard that there may be something in the works for Mississippi they're trying to pull together.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not going to happen this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it sounds like that we're not going to have a face-to-face this year. But there were a couple of sisters, women who were sisters down in Battles, Mississippi, who was planning on hosting the reunion this year. And back in April, they sent out a notice saying that they were going to decline and just roll it over. We had agreed to do the reunion every 2 years.
Yeah.
So saying like, hey, we just roll it over to 2023, which is the next time we would be scheduled after this year to do the reunion. But I think that we may have some, what do you call it? Some online stuff possible, Are you, Carl, are you a member of the Woolard and Woolard family Facebook group?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
If you send me a link or an invite, I'll join.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I don't know if we're friends on Facebook. I don't mess around too much, but I'm sure that it happens. I'll get in there and I'll make sure that you get hooked up.
Yeah, I'm not a Facebook person. My daughter-in-law, she sends a lot of photos through that, and I get these messages, but I rarely go on there. Yeah, I'm just so busy at work. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, good. Well, Percy, anything else?
I'm glad I had this opportunity to get to know a little bit about Carl and his family, his side of the family.
Well, I hope you know me a lot better. And this was a fun exercise. It's a lot of fun, being able to share some things that I've never really, talked to people about.
Well, this is something you can give to your sons so that they can give it to their kids.
Yeah.
And it can keep passing through the family. They'll have something about their grandpa, about their dad, about their great grandfather.
Yeah, so Percy and WH is a plan to have like maybe an archive that's accessible by all of our families. If they ever want to go on there generations from now and like pull out the videos and take a look. Are you looking at something like that, like an archive?
Not really. First, I'll say yes and no. we hadn't actually thought about setting up a separate archive that we would control. But one of the things that I have been doing and I will do is like take this recording and upload it to my account in YouTube and keep it as a, they call it like a private video, so that if someone was to put your name into the search box in YouTube, this recording wouldn't come up. But if I send you the link and you have the link, you have access to the video, which is the way that the other bit, Diane and my own and other videos are set up. So, you know, I mean, putting it in YouTube is sort of like putting it in an archive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And
one of the things you can do, and we try to do, is you can download it on a DVD. It has to be a DVD or a flat. What's that little thing?
Flash drive.
Yeah, there you go. And then you can give it to your kids, and they can pop it in and take a look at dad, or they can look at grandpa. Or you can give them the DVD and they can, you know, they'll have their copy.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah. Donna, did you have a comment?
Nope, it was wonderful. Good seeing you, Carl.
The same
Love
as
in
Donna.
person.
Looking good.
You too.
So Donna, you enjoying retirement?
I am.
I'm not too far behind.
Promote join the club. I'm trying to get my two brothers up there, but they still working.
Yeah, I want to go out when I increase my income, you know? Yeah. Oh, by the way, the latest thing they said last week is in California, the governor and a committee is trying to get a bill through for reparations for African Americans in California, of all places.
Yeah, right. Well, they got the study commission through. They did get that through. So
really?
Yeah. And they've appointed the commissioners, you know. So things are, you know, I mean, things are things. We're getting a lot of backlash, just as we always have, you know. When there's one step forward, you know, two steps back, and you know, back and forth. But yeah, you're right. There is. I saw something that was a little kind of, I mean, well, potentially disturbing today, where it was saying that a federal judge threw out California's ban on assault weapons.
Yeah.
So just like so much craziness going on. It's hard to know what's good and like, you know, what impact decisions will have. But you're right. Yeah, I'm in touch with a couple of through my work around reparations. I'm in touch with a couple of folk out in California who are involved with the Reparations Commission.
Yeah, you think they learn from other countries. You know, many years ago, Germany made reparations to Israelis that, you know, suffered through the Holocaust and, you know, other, you know, bad treatment. And nowadays, you know, Germany and Israel, they have very good relationships because of that. But they you know, stood up to the plate and they did what they had to do, you know, which makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're far behind. You know, we have a ways to go. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, nice seeing all of you, and have a wonderful weekend and stay cool, and look forward to next time we can get together. You know, I planned on being in Chicago last year for a conference, but it was canceled, you know, because of the COVID. Yeah. But there'll be an opportunity in the future, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
All right, y'all. Keep an eye out. I'll be sending out the link for the recording.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Good night.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.